Hi guys, welcome to Abby's Place, the place where no matter where you are, you can always feel a little at home. Thanks for coming over. Thanks for stopping by. I'm so happy you're here. If you're listening on Spotify, welcome. Apple Music, welcome. And if you're watching from YouTube, special welcome because you guys can actually see me right now. If you don't know, I'm going to be filming all these and putting them on YouTube. So if you want to watch visually along with listening to the podcast, make sure you go subscribe to Abby's Place podcast on YouTube. Big old disclaimer before we start. I woke up really sick today. The day that I was supposed to film episode 1. So sorry about that. I actually filmed this episode last week and then was editing it and just realized I hated it. So we're doing it again. And I'm actually way more excited about the stuff we're going to talk about in this one. So anyways, I'm sick. I woke up sick. Guys, I had a boy sleepover last night. If you're my family watching, if you are my mom, my dad, my grandma, my grandpa on either side, any of my family members watching, I slept alone last night in my own bed. If you are anyone other than my family, I had a boy sleepover last night. And I woke up at 7 a.m. this morning with one nostril completely plugged and my throat so scratchy and my head pounding. And have you guys ever tried to be cute while you have one nostril plugged? It doesn't work. I woke up and I was like, oh no, don't look at me. But he left and I said goodnight and went back to bed and slept until 10. So that's the kind of day we're having. Would appreciate your thoughts and prayers. Anyways, guys, welcome to episode 1. I'm so excited to be here. This podcast has been something I've had in the works for so long, but just haven't really taken the steps to start it, you know? So I'm really happy that we're here right now. I just want the podcast to be a place for you to go when you want somewhere to hang out. I just want it to feel like you're a friend coming over to my house and we're just hanging out and talking about anything and everything. Some serious topics and some really not so serious topics. So I'm really stoked. I think it's going to be a really fun endeavor. And along with that, it's a place for me to go as well. This is just a place for me to go hang out and talk to you guys and kind of nurture that relationship that we've formed over the years. If you followed me for a while, and if you're new here, to start a new relationship. Hi, I'm Abby. Let's be friends. Okay, so for episode 1, we're going to talk about some really fun stuff and some topics that are very prevalent in my life right now. But first, I want to do a little introduction if maybe you don't know me or maybe you don't know a lot about me if you followed me for a while. Hi, I'm Abby. My full name is Abigail Martin, but in real life, I just go by Abby. It's very rare that anyone actually calls me Abigail. If you do know me, you probably know me from my era of living in a van for 4 years. If you don't know, when I was 19, I packed up everything and moved into a van alone. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in this episode. But that's probably where you know me from. I did do that. I don't live in a van anymore. I still have my van, but I live in a house now. I have access to running water, specifically hot running water, and a shower. Oh, guys. I can't tell you how nice that is after showering at Planet Fitness for 4 years straight. Not just Planet Fitness, but also Rivers. Oh my God. Anyway, I have raging ADHD, so this podcast might be a little jumpy, but it's going to be fun. So anyway, I'm a Leo, if you couldn't tell, if that tells you anything about me. I grew up in Washington State, so I'm a Pacific Northwest girly. I still have yet to go to the East Coast, but it's on my list. I live in Oregon now. I live in Bend, Oregon, in a little house here, and I love it. The cold has been tough, though, TUFF, tough. For the last 4 years, I went down to San Diego to go surf every winter, and this is the first year that I haven't done that, and my mental health has been spiraling. Another fun fact, I've never ridden on a roller coaster. I feel like there's 3 types of people in this world: people who love roller coasters, people who hate roller coasters, and a third, worst type, people who have never been on a roller coaster. And that's me. Hi, I'm Abby, and I've never been on a roller coaster. It's because I'm terrified of them, and mostly because I'm terrified that either I would throw up or someone would throw up on me, and that just doesn't sound enjoyable, and I don't feel like I need that in my life. But whenever I tell people that I've never been on a roller coaster, everybody's like, what, you've never been on one? No, and I never plan to. I love raccoons. I want a raccoon so bad. Okay, enough about me. I want to get into the meat of this episode. We're going to talk about some really fun stuff. At the end of the episode, I want to talk about my ins and outs for 2025 because I have some heavy opinions on this. And then we're going to do a giveaway. So if you want to enter the giveaway, stay tuned till the end of the episode. I'm looking at you. You got to stay here till the end of the episode. And then you will have the chance to win something, which who doesn't like a gift? So the giveaway is going to have to do with stuff we talk about in this episode. And it's some of my favorite things. So stay tuned for the giveaway. Stay tuned for the ins and outs. But first, I want to talk about a topic that has played a huge role in my life, and that is what it's like to choose an unconventional life, specifically in your early 20s. First, I want to give a bit of a backstory. I have always been someone that has tried to live outside of the box or tried to live in a way that stood out to people. I always wanted to stand out. I don't know why. I don't know what psychological thing that has to do with my brain in my brain, but I do know that I've always wanted to do what everybody else isn't doing. So if all my friends were doing sports, I was taking dance lessons. And then my friends started taking dance lessons. So I started taking singing lessons. And then I was riding horses. And I was always on to the next thing. And I was never satisfied with anything I was doing. So that has played a role in my life significantly growing up. And it continues to play a large role in my life now. So living unconventionally has always been in my DNA. And because of this, I feel like I have an easier time doing it than I think some people. And that's why I kind of want to share my perspective on it. If maybe you want to do something that's out of the box or live in an unconventional way, but you feel scared or you feel like you don't know how to do it, I want to hold your hand and I want to be your big sister through this and give you a little bit of encouragement and my why behind doing it and how you kind of shift your mindset around living an unconventional life. So I want to start off by telling you a little bit about my story, starting when I was 18, when I graduated high school. When I graduated high school, all of my friends were going to the same in-state college. They were going to Washington State University or UW. And I was planning on going to WSU, Washington State, but something in me just, again, wanted to be different. And so I decided to go to an out-of-state college in Arizona. And not a lot of people know this because I wasn't doing social media at the time, so I really didn't post about this. But basically, when I was actually 17 at the time, I packed up all my stuff and my mom and I drove from Washington to Arizona because I was planning on going to Arizona State University. My why behind this was because I had applied there and gotten to the biomedical program, and that was my dream. I wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. I wanted to work with kids, specifically kids with cancer. And ASU was a very social school, and I knew that I wanted to be around that kind of scene. So it just made sense, and I also wanted to try living somewhere warm and somewhere different, and I also had friends in Arizona. So it sounded like the perfect dream, right? But I had never left home. I had never even been to a summer camp growing up. Anytime I would sleep over at my friends' houses growing up, I would get homesick and my mom would have to come pick me up. I am such a mama's girl. And for some reason in my head, I didn't even think that this would be an issue when moving to Arizona. Plot twist, it was. But I think there was this blind optimism that took over me when I moved there, that just knew that everything would work out the way it was meant to. And in my head, I was thinking that it would work out in a positive way. And it did end up doing that, but it kind of broke me down first. When I moved to Arizona, I had to take a gap year in order to get residency at ASU because I couldn't afford the out-of-state tuition. And so my plan was to live with my family down there for a year, get my residency in Arizona, and then start going to college the next year. So I was taking a gap year. And when I moved down there, I immediately started having my first real struggle with anxiety and panic attacks. And I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on in my body. All I knew was that I moved to a new place. It was unfamiliar and my nervous system was freaking out. This was my first time living in a house that wasn't my own. I was born and raised in the same house my whole life. I was raised in a really small town growing up, Chelan, Washington. If you don't know, population very small. And I was raised fairly, closeted, if that makes sense. I was raised in a way that was very conventional, like kind of white picket fence family. And I really hadn't had to do much venturing out on my own. I mean, I had willingly, but I always had that comfort and support of my parents. So this move to Arizona was terrifying, and it hit me really hard. It hit me so hard that I started really, really, really struggling. My dad had to fly back down to Arizona to come take care of me. And what this looked like was I was just having severe panic attacks all the time. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't eat. And when I could eat, it like really upset my stomach because of my anxiety. I was constantly on like every medication you could imagine. I was taking Zofran to help with the nausea from the anxiety. I was taking omeprazole to help with like the stomach problems from the anxiety. I was taking so much CBD. I was indulging any chance I could. I was definitely self-medicating a lot for this. And anyway, this was my first look at what it looked like to really step outside the box and live in an unconventional way, because even though this is a small way, a lot of people go to out-of-state colleges. A lot of people leave home and go out of state, for sure. This was my first taste at like dipping my toes in the water of doing something that was really out of my comfort zone, which was leaving home. And it was hard and it wrecked me. I ended up only staying in Arizona for 6 months because I was struggling so bad. And I felt like a failure. I was living there and I couldn't take care of myself, and I didn't know how to cope with that. And so I moved home after 6 months. And when I moved home, I fell into like this really, really big depression because I felt like I failed. When in reality, that pain that I was experiencing in Arizona was really just a lot of transformative growth that I didn't see at the time. I saw it as me going there, getting sick, and then having to come home and kind of reestablish myself. What I didn't realize is that when I came home, I had then taken with me all of the confidence that I had built up while going through that hard time in Arizona. And if I wouldn't have gone through that and gone through the uncomfortable, terrifying experience that was, I wouldn't have been able to step into the life that I did that year. So flash forward to 2020. We all remember 2020, guys. That was a tough time. In January of 2020, I had just moved home a few months prior from Arizona. And again, like I said, I felt like a failure. At this point in my life, I was gardening a lot, if you know what I mean. Definitely to self-medicate. I was pretty much always on something. I was hanging out with a group of friends that weren't conducive to the life that I wanted, but it was a way of self-destructing, of, feeling like I was punishing myself for failing in Arizona. And I just overall was very unhappy. I was very depressed. And some of my first TikToks I ever posted, guys, you can go look them up. They're still up. Is me literally being like, depression check. And my room's a mess and I haven't showered in a week and I look crazy and I'm just like manic. That was my first online experience, was like me being like, I need help, and that's why I started posting online, is because I really did feel like I wanted community and I needed help. And so anyway, moved home, was super depressed. I needed something to grasp onto. I needed a sense of hope. And for me, that looked like the next big adventure. So when I got home, the easiest thing to do for me, which is what my parents wanted me to do, was to apply to other colleges and start planning towards fall semester. So it's January at the time, and I'm like, okay, I'll start planning to go to college in September when fall semester starts at an in-state school, so I'm closer to home. So I was planning on going to Western Washington University. And this was just like an easy choice because my sister went there and I had been to Bellingham a lot before and my family was only 4 hours away from Bellingham. So it just made sense and it was like the comfortable thing for me to do. But I knew it didn't feel right. I knew that no part of me really wanted to go there. And I then was a photographer at the time. I was a full-time wedding and portrait photographer. And so I was like, oh, I'll just go major in business. Even though I was perfectly successful as I was. I didn't need a business major to be a photographer, but in my head, that was like the next step, right? You graduate high school, you go to college, okay? And I had already taken a gap year, and so I knew I needed to go back. So I'm 18 and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start working as much as I can so that when I'm in college, I don't have to work. I'm going to save up a bunch of money and I'm going to start working. But in the back of my head, I don't think a lot of people know this. When I did my senior presentation in high school, when you do a senior presentation, you talk about what you want to do for your 5-year plan. And in my senior presentation, I was looking at videos of it actually yesterday. I said, in my 5-year plan, I want to buy a van and go travel the world. That is, I want to graduate college. As soon as I graduate college, I want to buy a van, build it out, and go travel the world. And that was my dream. But in my head, I had to do that after college because doing it before college just wouldn't make sense because then I would have to go back to college later and it was just unconventional and blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of fear surrounding it. But I knew that was something I wanted to do. So in the back of my head, when I'm working all these jobs, I was working 4 jobs at the time. I would wake up at 6 a.m. and I would go to a coffee shop from 6 a.m. to noon. After that, I would walk across the street and I would work at the boutique across the street from noon to 6. And then after I worked at the boutique, I would walk down the street and work at this restaurant from 6 to 11. So I was working from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, along with running my own photography business and working my butt off so that I could save for college. But in the back of my head, I was saving for a van. But I didn't want to tell anyone this because I knew that I would be met with criticism. I knew it would make people uncomfortable. And I knew that that criticism being let into my life could discourage me from pursuing that goal. But I knew it's what I wanted to do. And I want to tell you something that really stuck with me is I didn't just hope that I was going to live this life. I knew that I was going to do this. Nobody else knew, but I did. I knew that this was going to happen and I had already accepted it. And that's one thing that I always told myself is to live the life you want, you have to accept that it's already yours. You have to visualize this life that you want. And not just think of it as a possibility or that someone else is going to do it and you'll just live vicariously through them. You have to visualize it and feel that you already have it. And that's manifesting. That's just like putting your energy into the right places and soon enough it will turn out to be yours. But you really, really, really have to believe, I will do this. This is already mine. It's already going to happen. It's already happened. And that really helped me build confidence in the possibility of living unconventionally. So it's 2020. I'm working all these jobs and COVID hits and the world shuts down. And at this point, I had already had so much go wrong this year that this was kind of the icing on the cake. And I was ready to just give up because one, we all had to isolate. So I had no friends. I had no contact with like the outside world, like all of us did. I mean, I'm sure you can relate if you were around during COVID. That was crazy. And second, I lost every single job that I had because they were all service jobs. Waitress, barista, boutique, all of them were service jobs. I was slightly doing photography at the time, but not really. And any photography that I did had to be like very distanced. And so that kind of shut down as well. So I went from saving for this goal to not having any money, not having any friends, and having like no hope. But I still knew that this was going to happen. I still felt it in my heart that this was the right path for me. And I believed in myself enough to know that I was going to make it happen regardless. And so I spent a few months not working, and, trying to do odd jobs here and there, like house sitting for friends if they needed house sitters. I was walking dogs. I was doing whatever I could to scrounge up any sort of money. And I was putting it into this little piggy bank that my grandma got me that said My Adventure Fund on it. And in her head, she got it for me for my college fund and like the adventure of college. But in my head, that was my adventure fund for buying my van. So all this money that I was putting in there, I was like, this is going to go towards my van one day. And if I haven't said it already, my dream was to buy a van, build it, and travel the world. That was the goal. I had been, consuming van life content for so long, and like I looked up to so many van lifers. Eamon and Beck were like such a huge inspiration in this journey in my life. I watched their videos religiously, and just I think back to that girl I was, and I'm like, that's crazy that like I'm the one doing that now. It's just insane, and it feels surreal, and I'm so thankful for it. But that was my headspace at the time, is that I was saving for this van. So this is so silly to talk about. So that summer, since I had lost all my jobs, my dad ended up being able to get me a job working at his fruit facility. He works as a fruit exporter at a company, and he was able to get me a job as a freight forwarder. So if you don't know, it's the most boring job in the world. Basically, I would go in the morning and I would print out papers, and then I would label all of these freight packages of fruit with papers and send them off. And then I would spend the rest of the day on my laptop doing paperwork. So it was a very unglamorous job. Like I was wearing a construction vest in the job. It wasn't anything fun. I didn't love it, but I did love it because I would go into work and all I could think about was, here's another day where I'm working towards this goal, right? And at the end of the summer, I started looking on Facebook Marketplace for vans. And again, I had told my mom about this, and my mom was actually really supportive. She had gone with me to help me look at some vans over in Seattle, and she was making like a really big deal out of it, and she was all excited. And my mom is just like an angel of a woman. She is just the kindest, most supportive mom ever. And she's always been that for me. She's always been a source of support and love, and I could not be thankful enough. Like I really don't think I could have done that without her. But my dad, on the other hand, was terrified for me. In his head, he saw me as this lost teenager, which I definitely was. But he saw me as this lost teenager who didn't know what she was doing and was running away from it. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's what I was kind of doing. But I also knew that I wasn't running away from something. I was running towards something. And that was a big thing, is I felt like I was chasing a dream and I wasn't running away from a problem. But my dad didn't see it that way, and he was terrified, and he projected a lot of that fear onto me. Like he, instilled these beliefs in me saying, you're going to ruin your life and you're going to come running back home. He instilled no confidence in me that I could actually do this. And so it made me terrified, but I knew that he wasn't speaking from a place of truth. He was speaking from a place of fear. And I knew that in my heart, but it was still really hard to hear. And that's another thing I want to remind you, is that choosing a life you want means sacrificing the need to make everyone comfortable. Because choosing a life you want means that people will be uncomfortable with it. You are going to be uncomfortable with it, but especially the people around you who maybe don't understand and won't try to understand it. It's going to make them uncomfortable because you're doing something that's out of the box, and that's okay. But you have to be okay with sitting with that discomfort. And you also have to be okay with grieving the life that you had. To choose the new life that you want, you have to grieve the life that you're giving up or that you're leaving. And for me, I was grieving the life of this possibility of me becoming a doctor, a pediatric oncologist, or going to college and having that college experience, because I knew that if I was moving into the van, I wasn't going to be going to college. This was going to be my college experience. And so I was grieving that possibility of that life, but I still knew that it was the right thing to do. And that's a thing too, is when you feel in your heart, when you're aligned with your intuition, you will know when you're doing the right thing. It won't feel like a question, and it won't feel hard because you know that it's right. And I knew this was right, even though technically it was the harder route. My dad, going into this, and I don't want to sound like I'm shit talking my dad, because he is wonderful and I love my dad and we have a great relationship now, and he's very supportive and kind. But at the time, my dad was like, okay, if you go to college, we're going to financially support you through it. You won't have to pay for housing. You won't have to pay for food. Like, we'll financially support you through it. If you decide to not go to college and live in a van, you're cut off, where I'm not going to financially support you. I'm not going to be a means of support. You can't just come running home to me anytime you want. And I had to sit with that and be like, okay, this is going to suck for a bit, but I'm going to prove him right, or I'm going to prove him wrong. So, and I did. So third, you have to be able to sit with the criticism that people are giving you and still remember your own truth. Still remember why you're in it and why you're doing it, and know that that criticism isn't the truth. It's just a projection of their own fear. And making any decision out of fear is usually the wrong one. So you can't let someone else's projection of fear mold into your own self-doubt. It's not going to work. And it's going to be hard. It's a constant uphill battle to living the life you want, but you have to start. And you're never going to get there if you don't start. So anyway, flash forward to September. I was on Facebook Marketplace and I found this van, and my parents were actually out of town at our cabin at the time, so they had no idea that I was doing this. But I saw this van on Marketplace at midnight and it had just been posted. Oh, hi, Archie. Okay. Archie, you want to say hi? You want to say hi to the camera? Hi. Archie wants to say hi. Where's the Archie man? Want to say hi? Come here. What's this? What's this? Say hi. Say hi. Okay. All right, go lay down. Go lay down. So my family was out of town. They had no idea that I was doing this. And I found this van on Marketplace at midnight. And I start spamming them with messages being like, hey, I want this van. Can I come look at it? And it was a 2017 Ford Transit mid-roof. I knew I didn't want the high roof because for some reason in my head it was going to be too hard for me to drive. So I wanted the mid-roof because it was a smaller, more maneuverable van. I also could go through some drive-thrus still, so slay, that was really fun. And it was within my budget. The van was $18,000. So in my head, I was like, I was going to take out a personal loan for $10,000 and I was going to pay the rest cash because I had saved up about $10,000. So I was going to use $8,000 to buy the van. And then I was going to use the next $2,000 to start building it out. And then I was going to keep working while I was building it. So I had it all laid out in my head of what I was going to do. So I start messaging them and they were like, we have some other offers. When's the soonest you can come see it? And I was like, I can be there at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And it's midnight at this point, and the van's 3.5 hours away from where I was. But I was like, I can be there at 10 a.m. Like, I'll literally start driving right now. Like, I was so excited. So they're like, okay, come look at the van tomorrow. And so I go by the bank and I pull out $4,000 in cash and I take it with me to go look at this van, knowing that this was my van, that I was going to take this van. And this van is so funny because it used to be a touring van in Alaska. So this is a passenger van. It had, 4 rows of seats in it. And it had 2 bears on either side of it because it was this tour van in Alaska. So when I moved into the van, everybody knew me as like the girl with the bear van, which for some reason was so fitting. It was just another way of being unconventional. And I loved it. I loved my bear van. So for the next couple months, I drove the van home. My parents didn't know. And I pulled up in the driveway. So I put a deposit down on the van, and then the next week my mom drove with me to go pick up the van. She drove me down. We got the van. It was so exciting. I remember I picked it up in, I think, like a Home Depot or a Lowe's parking lot, which is so fitting. And we took some pictures, and I drove the van back home, and I just remember sitting in it, and I felt so alive and so ready. Like, it was, the feeling when you have it. It just felt right. And even though it was terrifying and I had no idea what I was doing, I had never even used a drill in my life before. How was I going to build this van? I knew that I could do it and I knew that it was right. So I was so excited. So for the next few months, I spent that time building my van and figuring it out and watching YouTube tutorials. And I ended up building a full electrical system by myself at 19. I built a bed, a bench, a full kitchen, running water, the whole 9 yards in this van. I had lights, I had phone chargers in the van, I had solar panels. The van would charge while I was driving. Like, I wasn't gonna half-ass this van. I wanted it to be amazing, right? And it was still kind of janky. There was some stuff wrong with it, but I figured it out. And during this time of me building my van, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. So in November of 2020, after we had already gone through such a hard year with COVID and everything, and I felt like I was finally starting to get my feet under me, my mom came home from the doctor one day and sat me down, and she was crying, and I had no idea what was going on. And she said I had just gotten a mammogram and it came back irregular. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't know what this means. And she was like, it means that like this, I could have cancer in one of my breasts. And that, I'll never forget that day. And I'll never forget the next appointment that she had when we found out that she did have cancer. And it was a really aggressive form of cancer. And so at this point, I don't want to talk about her perspective or her experience too much because that's her story to tell. I just want to talk about my experience in this situation. But at this point, my whole world kind of came crashing down because I felt like I was finally getting my feet under me and my depression was getting better and my mental health was improving. And I was so excited about the life that I had been living. And then I find out that my mom might, die. And not only that, but that she was going to have to be going through probably the worst experience of her life for the next year, going through chemo and radiation. And because this cancer was very aggressive, she had to go through a very aggressive form of treatment. And she didn't want me to be around for it. If you don't know, I have like an extreme phobia of throwing up. And it sounds silly, but it's very real and it's hard to deal with. And she knew that if I was around, that I would be miserable and adding to the anxiety there. And so as much as she wanted me to be safe and under her wing during this time, because she didn't feel safe, she wanted at least me to be safe, she knew that I had to go and she still encouraged me to go. And I felt so conflicted at this point because I didn't know what the right decision was to make. I didn't know if I should stay with my mom and hold her hand through this cancer treatment. And sometimes I still feel like I should have. Or if I should go and live my life and do the stuff that she wanted me to do. And this was really hard, and we talked about it a lot, but in the end, she said go. And it reminds me, there's this one Shane Koizan poem where he talks about his mom getting sick, and in the beginning it says stay. That's what mothers say when their sons and daughters go away. They say stay, and my mother said go. And that's exactly what happened, as my mom said. I love you. I wish you could be here, but I know that you need to leave. And I did. So despite everything, despite the discouragement from my dad and my mom getting sick and all of this, I chose to still leave. And February of 2021, I set out in my van. And it was hard at first. It was the most transformative experience that I've ever had, but it was really difficult. My first month on the road, so silly. My first month on the road, I leave Washington. I go down to Southern California to meet up with these people who were also living in vans. So I planned to meet up with these people, and we all met up in the desert, in the Mojave Desert. And this is within my first, I think, week of living in the van. We meet up and we're all partying together. And it probably wasn't smart because, again, this is February 2021. COVID is still happening. But we were like, okay, all of us live in vans. We're all usually pretty isolated anyway. Like, none of us are going to get sick, right? And also, that night, we're passing around with this bottle of tequila. And we're like, oh, the tequila will kill the COVID on there. Perfect. Guys, again, I was 19. So I am, partying with all these strangers. And sure enough, the next day or 2 days later, we get a text in the group chat saying, hey, someone's come down with COVID. Y'all should get tested. So we all got tested. I ended up having it. And what do you do when you're alone, 19, living in a van, got COVID, everything's shut down, you have no place to quarantine except your van? What do? You go park in the middle of a dried up lake bed and you hang out with friends for 2 weeks that also have COVID and you all quarantine together. So that's what we did. But honestly, guys, it sucked. Like, I was in the middle of Joshua Tree in this dried up lake bed. I was so sick and I was miserable. luckily I was surrounded by like amazing friends, and I'll never forget the times that like we had at that time because it was so funny. But it was tough, and my first, month on the road was not very easy. I had a lot of stuff go wrong. So even though it was hard, I still never doubted it for a second because I knew that the person I was becoming was going to thank the person I was at the time. And even to this day, I tell myself that. I tell myself the person I'm becoming right now is going to thank who I am right now because I'm taking steps to become her. And just like the girl, 5 years ago took steps to become me right now. And it's a good reminder. The person you are right now is becoming the person you will be. And as long as you're taking the little steps to do that, you will get there, but you have to start somewhere and you have to go little by little. For me, my first step, and I didn't even know it at the time, was moving to Arizona. Because if I hadn't moved to Arizona, I wouldn't have gained the confidence that I had to go out on my own again. Because in my head, if I could get through the shit I went through in Arizona, if I could get through that tough of a time, and I could get through, my mom's cancer diagnosis and COVID and all this, I could get through anything. And I built that confidence up in myself by going through the hard stuff and figuring it out. And I think a lot of people don't realize that is the way you build confidence in your decision making is making hard choices and figuring them out. Having something go wrong and then problem solving. Because once you problem solve enough, you can get through anything. And now I don't have a lot of fear when it comes to anything in life because I know that whatever happens, I can get through it. Whereas like with traveling, with doing anything alone, I know I can handle myself. But the only way I've been able to get there is by taking that step and doing it. And I really, really want you guys to know this, that it doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be you're going skydiving or you're going base jumping or you're going and doing this insane, crazy thing to build confidence. It can be taking yourself out to lunch alone. Going and doing something alone is hard. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the more normal it becomes. Taking yourself out to lunch alone, going for a walk alone, going on a road trip, just a day trip alone, going 2 hours to a different town, going and spending the day in that town by yourself, exploring by yourself, and then going back home. You can stay in your comfort zone, but slightly push the boundary of it. Slightly just get out of it a little bit. And I promise you, little by little, it will help and you will get there. And everybody starts somewhere, but it doesn't have to be like this gigantic thing of what you see on social media of people dropping everything and moving to Europe, like I did, and changing your life so drastically, because chances are if you do that, you're going to burn yourself out. Start small and work your way up. And I promise you it will happen how it's meant to happen as long as you stay on the path that feels right for you. And the last thing I want to say on this topic before we move into the more fun stuff is, God, this podcast is going to be 2 hours long. Jesus. You can't wait for someone else to choose that life for you. And this was a hard realization in my heart too, because if you guys don't know, about 6 months after I moved into the van, I met a boy. And I met this boy, and this boy seemed like he had direction. He had a passion, and he had a place he wanted to be. He had goals for the future. And me, aimless little 19-year-old who had just adopted my first dog and had no idea what I was doing and no direction and really no passions, was drawn to that. I was like, oh my God, this guy, he has so much direction in his life and so much motivation and passion. And I want that. I want to live like that. So I'm going to latch onto him and I'm going to make my identity his identity, because that's easier than finding my own self. And also I was falling in love, like for sure. Loved him, still love him. He's amazing. We're still great friends. And we ended up dating for 2 years. And in that 2 years, I forgot myself. Like I completely chose to put myself to the side and align my identity with what made sense for him. Because even though I chose this life for myself, I still lacked a lot of self-confidence in terms of who I was. So it was easier for me to identify myself as his girlfriend and his partner and doing the things that he liked doing than it was for me to be my own person. So I followed him everywhere. And this led to, flash forward a year into us dating, me selling everything I owned, selling my van, selling all my belongings, putting the rest into a storage unit, and moving to Europe with him. Because moving to Europe was his dream. And I thought, if moving to Europe is his dream, then it must be mine too. And it took me moving to Europe and completely losing myself to realize that it wasn't my dream. And I want to go into that more on another episode. But if I start here talking about it, it's just going to be forever, because Europe was its own journey in and of itself. But I'm going to do another episode on what that was like, moving to Europe and then moving back from Europe. But I had to learn the hard way that waiting for someone to choose your life and your passions for you, it never works. Okay? Don't do that. Learn from me and don't do that. Okay? Choose your own passions, choose your own identity. And any person who comes into your life should enhance that. They shouldn't take away from it. You shouldn't feel like you have to put yourself aside for someone. There's compromise in relationships regardless, 100%. But if you feel like you're sacrificing yourself for this person and their dreams, and you're forgetting yourself, take a step back and take a break. Take a breather. Go for a walk and really think about what you want. Because chances are, because it is such an easy thing to do. So don't wait for someone else to define your life for you. You can define it yourself, I promise. Now, quickly, I want to talk about this book that really goes into these topics more in depth. And it's a book that I've lived by for the last 3 years, I think is when I discovered this book. And this book is called 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think. And it's by Brianna Wiest. I think that's how you pronounce it, Wiest. But as you can tell, I have a lot of shit bookmarked in here. I love this book. It is basically my Bible. And she has some chapters in here that really talk about living an unconventional life, and what that means and how to kind of start over. And so I kind of want to read just a little bit from this book, and this has to do with the giveaway too at the end. So it is prevalent. Okay, let's see. I marked these today. Okay, so this chapter is called How to Become the Kind of Person Who Deserves the Life You Want. And one line or paragraph that really stuck out to me in this chapter, it goes like this. Wanting is the ugliest thing you can do. It keeps your experience in a state of not having. It keeps good things at a distance. You get what you most want when you don't want it anymore. When you shift your mindset and your experience to that of already having, you naturally create and attract things that align with your idea of yourself. Acceptance is the root of abundance. Oh my God. I love her words. I love her words so much. And it's like what I talked about earlier. When you accept what you already have, it's already yours and it will happen. And then she goes on to say, leave if you have to leave. There's rarely an excuse to remain with people who don't love or accept you. There are ways to survive. There are second jobs and extra hours and rooms that kind people are willing to rent or share. But these things are reserved for people who place their mental well-being over immediate convenience. These are reserved for people who deserve them and who know they deserve a space or room or home or apartment in which they decide what is and is not acceptable for their lives. And she goes on to say, you are not supposed to always be happy and certain and stable. If you were, it wouldn't be such a struggle. Transcending the pain of humanness is one thing and one thing only, allowing yourself to be it. The struggle is trying to escape that which is inevitable. And another quote in this book that has always stuck with me is, and I don't even know what chapter it's in, but it's, the universe whispers until it screams. And it's so true. If you are on the wrong path, you'll know you're on the wrong path, and it'll whisper at you slightly and nudge you and nudge you and nudge you, and then it'll scream at you and you won't be able to ignore it. And for me, this came in terms of panic attacks. I had been experiencing slight anxiety over this move to Arizona and the move to Europe, when I moved to Europe in the van. Slight anxiety until it was full on panic attacks and I couldn't function. And it was my body's way of telling me that this wasn't the right thing. And once I listened to it, guys, when I moved back from Europe, I hadn't had a panic attack in 6 months, it's crazy what your body will tell you if you listen to it. Okay. And then last little excerpt here. And then we'll get on to the fun stuff. This one's fun too. Your identity does not have to be cohesive. Your story doesn't have to flow. You don't have to be neatly packaged in a way that other people understand. You have to stop living for your synopsis, the summary we try to piece together in our minds when we imagine people explaining us or evaluating who we are. It doesn't have to make sense. You're allowed to be great at a lot of things that don't necessarily relate to one another. You're not limited to just one purpose, one talent, one love. You can have a variety of jobs, each of them meaningful at the time you have them. You can be good at a lot of things without lacking in others. You do not have to be a novel. You can be a book of stories. You don't have to merge your coexisting truths and dull your shine just so it makes a small-minded person who wants you to fit into a narrow understanding of what they're comfortable with. Lastly, you do not have to only be what other people are comfortable with. Oh my God, I love this book. This book is so near and dear to my heart. I've read it probably 4 times through and then also listened to it on Audible. Her words, amazing. I highly recommend this book if you have not read it. Again, 101 essays that'll change the way you think. So good. So good. Okay. All right. So I hope that those words were encouraging for you. And if you feel called out, maybe it's time to change something. Maybe it's time to make a little change in your life. And if you feel comfortable with your life, then maybe it's not. But maybe in the future one day, these words will be more prevalent to you. It doesn't have to be right now. Okay, we're nearing the end of the podcast, so I want to enter a segment that I call 2025 Ins and Outs. And I know every other bitch with a podcast has done this segment, but I don't care. I want to join the conversation, okay? I want to insert myself, and that's fine. So I want to talk about my ins and outs for 2025 and what I'm bringing into this year and what I'm leaving in last year, even though it's already February. I'm still figuring this out, okay? Ins. Spin classes. Been going to a lot of spin classes recently. If you've never been to a spin class, you should. It's so fun. It's hard and you will die, but it's really, really fun. You basically go in and they turn all the lights off and there's just like 2 candles in the front room and you're listening to really loud music and just going ham on a bike. Oh my God. Talk about therapy. Whew, I love spin classes. Okay. Go to a spin class. So fun. Outs. Being lactose intolerant. As someone who's lactose intolerant, I'm sick of it. I'm over it. I wish there was a way to change this. All I know is that I'm done. I'm done being lactose intolerant. You know when I said, if you want something, you have to believe it's already true? I'm believing that right now. I'm not lactose intolerant anymore, okay? I wish. Okay, ins. 2 boys that I've been loving recently. Andy Samberg and Role Model. And I'm putting these together because I feel like them in a room together would be unstoppable. I love them. They're just perfect. Andy Samberg, so underrated. He was just on the newest SNL episode. Y'all, I need that man so bad. And Role Model goes without saying. Outs, the UK. Sorry to anyone who lives in the UK. I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm done with the UK, and mostly because I was talking to a boy there who really disappointed me and made me sad. So I'm throwing away the whole country, okay? So sorry. So sorry, UK. I'm done. I don't like it anymore. Ins. Being unfiltered on dating apps. If I'm going to go on a dating app and have the same boring ass conversations again and again and again, screw the dating app. I'm over it. So I am only bringing unhinged energy into Hinge, if that makes sense. There was this guy that slid into my DMs the other day, and you know what he said? He said, I really like your curtain bangs, which, okay, speaking my language, thanks for the compliment. And then he said, okay, so do you want to be my date to my cousin's circumcision party or not? And I said, yeah, love a good cision party. So that's what I'm talking about, okay? Ask weird questions, because if someone's going to match your energy in that way, green flag. So my favorite weird questions to ask on dating apps are, were you birthed via... Okay, Archie. Were you birthed via C-section or all natural? That's a good one. Oh, one of my favorite ones. What's your go-to way to commit arson? This will tell you a lot about a person, and it's always a really fun answer. My favorite way is with a magnifying glass and a beam of light onto like a tissue paper, because mad scientist energy, you know? And then third and last but not least, how many kids do you have in your basement right now? You can be honest. And I asked the same guy that asked me about the circumcision party that question, and he said, none actually, but I have 6 in my attic. And I thought that was really clever because you know what? He said none, and then he took it for a turn. So I respected that answer a lot. So being unhinged on dating apps, we're bringing that into 2025. That's an in. Outs. Dating musicians. Do I need to say any more on that one? No. I'm over it. Ins. Walking around with a candle at night like a Victorian child. In 2025, we are turning all the lights off. We are getting candlesticks with those little brass like candle holders, and we're walking around like a Victorian child. And along with this, nightgowns and those little nightcaps. In 2025, I'm embodying Ebenezer Scrooge, okay? From A Christmas Carol. That's going to be me. If any of my friends want to have a sleepover, they're going to have to deal with that. Any guys I bring home, sorry. Let me slip into something more comfortable, and I come out. And I come out in a nightgown, a cap, with a candle. Guys, I think this might be why I'm still single. Okay, ends. Spamming your close friend story. Guys, my close friend story hates to see me coming. Okay, the other day, I had a guy in my bed, and he said, "You're so mysterious." He said, "You're such an enigma." He called me an enigma. He said, "You're such an enigma." And I was like, really? Me? Mysterious? Like, I've never gotten that before. And I realized it's because homeboy's not on my close friend story. And I think that's a thing. I think I need to keep these boys that I'm interested in off my close friend story because I think they get too much of a raw, unfiltered side of me to where they don't really need to date me because they already get that on my close friends. Like, it's like we're already FaceTiming. But for my other friends on my close friends, it's a party. It's so fun. It's so fun. Spam your close friend story in 2025. Outs. This is gonna piss off a lot of my friends. Outs. Living in vans. I'm sorry. Van life is over. Van life era is over. Everybody needs to move into a house now. And mostly I'm sick of it because I'm getting major FOMO from being the only one living in a house and y'all are still out there living in vans. I'm sick of it. No, if I can't do it, neither can you. Move out of your van, move into an apartment or a house. I don't make the rules, but I do enforce them. Yeah, in 2025, we're actually showering. So I'll leave you with that one. Ins. Using matches instead of lighters just adds to your lore. I'm sorry. Anyone who pulls out a matchbook instead of a lighter at any time, especially to light a cigarette, especially a drunk cigarette, you are winning in my book. Matches will always rule instead of lighters. Outs. Olives. I hope we ban all olives in 2025. I think olives are the most disgusting thing ever. Sorry if you like olives. I hate them. I hate them so much. The last time I almost threw up was because I ate a blue cheese stuffed olive. I have a video of it. It was disgusting. Oh my god, it was so bad. It was so gross. Ins. Ed Sheeran. Why did we forget Ed Sheeran exists? Couple things on Ed Sheeran. One, every song Ed Sheeran has ever made, I'm a fan of. Especially Shivers. Anytime Shivers comes on in any public setting, I am getting up and I'm fucking line dancing. No matter where, no matter what. I could be on an airplane listening to Shivers in my AirPods. I'm up in the aisle going back and forth line dancing. I'm there. Oh my god. Shivers, Thinking Out Loud. The A-Team? Y'all ever read the lyrics to the A-Team? I'm gonna pull them up real quick. The A-Team is crazy because you think it's just like about a snow angel, right? I don't know. When I first listened to the A-Team when I was a kid, I definitely didn't think it was about what it was actually about. The A-Team, Ed Sheeran, lyrics. Okay. The metaphor that is this song, dude, Ed Sheeran is in for 2025 in my book. I love that guy. Okay, verse 1, white lips, pale face, breathing in the snowflakes, burnt lungs, sour taste. Lights gone, days end, struggling to pay rent, long nights, strange men. You get where we're going? And they say she's in the Class A team, stuck in her daydream, been this way since 18. But lately, her face seems slowly sinking, wasting, crumbling like pastries, and they scream, the worst things in life come free to us, because we're just under the upper hand. We go mad for a couple grams, and she don't want to go outside tonight. And in a pipe, she flies to the motherland or sells love to another man. It's too cold outside for angels to fly. Angels to fly. So he's talking about a prostitute, to be blunt with it, who's addicted to drugs. But the way he sings about this, big fan. I'm a big lyrics person, have always been a big lyrics person, and I love dissecting them. And Ed Sheeran is a really talented lyricist. So anyway, Ed Sheeran is in for 2025. Love him. Let's see. And lastly, a big out that I have for 2025. I got a bone to pick with the president right now, all right? I don't want to get political here, but this isn't even political. Out for 2025, laying off national park employees. What the fuck? What? We're going to lay off national park employees? The people who fight to protect our land? We're going to fire them. To what? To save a few bucks? That's out. That's out in my book. I'm over it. What kind of sick fuck tries to save a few dollars by firing people whose job is literally to protect our public lands? That's where you're going to try to save money? I'm over it. If you like going outside at all, if you've ever been to a national park, if you like going outside at all, and if you want future generations to be able to enjoy it, you should be outraged at this. If you don't know, they're trying to sell off public land right now, like national park land. They're laying off national park employees for the sake of budget cuts. I don't want to get too much into it because it's outrageous and insane, and it feels dystopian and feels wrong and makes me really scared. And I don't think that the right way to go about it is by instilling fear in people. I think hope is the only way we make change. So if you hope to keep these public lands preserved, I'm going to leave a link in my Instagram bio where you can go help out. Call your representatives, tell them you're pissed off about this, tell them you don't want to see it happen. Yeah, do what you can to take action. If you like being outside at all, this is also your responsibility. So, outs for 2025, done. Ins for 2025, done. Thank you for listening to that segment. Few last things to wrap up the podcast. I'm going to go through some of my favorites right now. I'm going to do this at the end of every episode, whether that's songs, poems, books, anything. I want to go through my favorites because I think in this day and age, what you consume is important. And if I can help you consume some stuff that maybe I like consuming, then we're going to relate to each other a little bit more, and then you'll get to know me better for next time. So this is your homework. First of all, favorites right now, songs. First one, 309 by Fen Lily. The lyrics in this are so good. I'm going to pull actually the lyrics up. And these lyrics have been so prevalent because, oh my God. 309 lyrics. These lyrics have been so prevalent because the amount of the amount of shitty men that I've talked to recently and guys who are emotionally unavailable and so avoidant that I've had to deal with makes my head throb. And it's not even because of the flu I have right now. It's because they just are so fucking confusing. So the song, it goes, so they tell me, hold him while you can, and you show me how it is to know a man. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And it seems all right when we talk through the night. How could I know how this would go? It's a first for me. It's a pain I need. It's too good to be. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. Oh my God. And then the next verse, she goes, so I let go moments at a time, 'cause I know soon I'm losing what is mine, but I say too much to justify your touch. Oh, I let go moments at a time because I know I'm losing what is mine. When you're with someone and you're laying in bed with them and you know you're losing them, you know they're slipping away and you know it's not going to work. So you start letting go actively while you're still with them. I can't tell you how many times I have been laying in bed with someone and known that it's temporary and that this might be the last time I'm with them like this. And had to start actively letting them go in my head while I'm still with them. Dude, that shit's tough. That shit's so tough. So anyway, that song, and also Fed Lily, one of my favorite artists. She is so underrated and she is so talented. She produces her own music. Oh my God, I love her. So good. Okay, next song, Don't Keep Driving by the Paper Kites. I already mentioned the Paper Kites earlier in this episode, but Don't Keep Driving is probably one of my all-time favorite songs. The guitar in this song is amazing. I love it so much. And I think it kind of has a similar theme to 309 because in this song, one of the main lyrics at the end of the song is, don't push me away. And in 309, it's please don't leave. So I don't know. I think these songs kind of like go together in a way because one of them's like, please don't leave me. And the other one's like, don't push me away. Oh, I just like this like tender desperation that comes when you feel like someone's leaving and you're like, please don't, please stay. Oh my God. I love music for that reason. I love music so much for that reason. So amazing. Love those songs. And then the last one, which also has to do with lyrics, is Come On by Ethan Tash. If you don't know Ethan Tash, let me put you on. Love Ethan Tash. His lyrics are so fucking funny. And they're so clever. They're not like funny, but they're like clever. For example, the lyrics in Come On, this is just going to turn into me dissecting lyrics because I'm a big lyrics person. I'm a big fan. Most of the time, if I like an artist, it's because they write really good lyrics. Come On, Ethan Tash. So many Ethans in my life recently. Okay, I like his lyrics because they're kind of like metaphoric. It says, upset that the dream I just slept with didn't stay the night. Bet it got a little bit jealous when it saw my mind. Still wrapped up in the one I've been chasing from when I was 9. Maybe they call it morning 'cause of all the dreams that die. I've never been a morning guy. Maybe they call it morning, like morning, like good morning, and also morning, like you're mourning something. Oh my God. I love that. Really, really good work, Ethan. 10 out of 10. So good. And then he has another song called Wherever I Am, and he does a similar thing in this song where he says, I think I could probably just quote it. He says, sleeping, breathing, doesn't matter what state he's in, always Ethan. So like the state of sleeping and breathing, or like the state of like what state you're in, doesn't matter what state he's in, always Ethan. Yeah. And I also just love when artists include their own names in their lyrics. I love that he's singing about himself. It makes me happy. Okay, so those are my three songs. 309 by Fen Lily, Don't Keep Driving by the Paper Kites, and Come On by Ethan Tash. Amazing. Poems. If y'all don't know, love poetry. One of my favorite poets, his name is Shane Koizan, and he has this poem called Visiting Hours, and it's devastating, but it's really good. So Shane Koizan, Visiting Hours. It's on Spotify. He's like a poet, but he's a short storyteller. So it's poetry, but it's also just like a story. Really fun to listen to. And then Tomatoes is also a really good one by him. Books. 101 Essays That'll Change the Way You Think. We already talked about that one. You already know the vibe. I think everyone should go read it. And another book that I loved recently is called Never Lie by Frida McFadden. Just a really good murder mystery. I had no idea how it was going to end until it did. And I was like, oh, damn, wouldn't have expected that. Really fun read, really easy read, and just like really good spin at the end, which I love. Okay. We made it to the end of episode 1, and we're going to get into the giveaway, and then I'm going to say bye and go take a nap. Okay? Probably right here. Probably going to turn the cameras off and take a nap. This flu is kicking my butt right now. But you know what? Nowhere else I'd rather be than with you guys hanging out here. Thanks for coming over. I'm having so much fun. Okay, so in honor of the first episode being done, in honor of you guys joining and being so supportive of the podcast launch, thanks for all the love on Instagram and everything. I want to do a little giveaway for you guys. And yeah, so first of all, let's go through what's going to be in the giveaway, because I have a little package here. Actually, I don't. Oh, it's in here. Okay, give me 1 second. Da-da-da-da. Here's everything that's going to be in the giveaway. Maybe they call it morning 'cause of all the dreams that die. I've never been a morning guy. All right. First up in the giveaway, of course, we have a new copy of 101 Essays That'll Change the Way You Think. We talked about this book, and I think everyone can benefit from it. So if you want to read this book, enter the giveaway, and you will have a chance to. Next, along with that book, you're getting a journal. This journal says, "There are always flowers for those who want to see them." And I think that goes along with our podcast episode of like, manifest what you want in life. So this is a journal for you to write your thoughts down. I actually have a matching one that I journal in every day. So we're going to be twins. I have the exact same one. So if you want this journal, enter the giveaway. Next, if you want to know what it smells like in my house, I'm giving you this candle. Now, this candle comes from a local place in Bend, and it is my favorite candle that I have ever smelled in my entire life. It literally smells like you're in a forest. It's insane. It's so good. And I have this lit 24/7. I also have essential oils diffusing in my house all over the place. So this is an amazing candle. And I was thinking, like, if you're watching the podcast, you can light this and then we'll be like smelling the same thing. You know? I don't know. It sounded cute. So you'll get a candle. And then along with the candle, you're going to get some matches, because we talked about matches in this episode and how matches are better than lighters. And not only are these matches, but they come in a little cute cowboy boot, and you strike the match on the bottom of the cowboy boot. And these are the most high quality matches that I have ever used in my entire life. I love them so much, and I have a matching cowboy boot that I use every day. So it's a ceramic match holder, has 25 matches, and it's a white cowboy boot. So you'll get that. And for your journal, you'll get some cute, colorful pens. And these are really good quality pens. They're black ballpoint pens, and I use the same ones, and they write really nice. So it's a set of 4. You'll get some good pens. Big fan. So if you want to enter the giveaway, these are the things you have to do. 1, go follow the Instagram page and the TikTok account. Abby's Place Podcast. It is the same on everything. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel, Abby's Place Podcast. Next, go leave either a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or leave a comment on the YouTube video. Either one of those will suffice. When you're done doing all these things, go to the Instagram, Abby's Place Podcast, and send me a DM saying, "See you next Monday." If you say, "See you next Monday," I will know that you have entered the giveaway. I will be announcing the winners on Instagram. So you have to be following on Instagram, because that's where I'm going to be picking and announcing the winners of the giveaway. So if you want to enter the giveaway, go do all those things. You will win all this stuff, and I'll also sign the journal for you just as a little thank you, and write you a little cute note. So anyway, okay, I think that's it. I think this episode's going to be so long, but thank you for sticking with me. Not all the episodes will be this long. This was just like a lot of stuff to cover right off the bat, but I feel like we're building a good foundation, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming over. I'm so happy to have had you here. Love you guys. Bye.